We have a 21-minute vidoc from 343 that was just leaked via a password-protected page, and this is very interesting because they discuss a lot of things that Halo was supposed to be and a lot of ambitions that are now actually playing out. For example, Unreal Engine and possibly other things that we haven't considered so much, like a hero shooter. This is something that I heard many years ago from my source, that Halo was supposed to have a class-like system, was supposed to kind of resemble Overwatch, for example. Yes, believe it, that is what was supposed to happen. And we see some of those things kind of coming to fruition. At least it was conceptualized. There's some cinematics that I think aren't very they're kind of shallow. They don't really mean anything, but they're still kind of cool to look at. Now, obviously, I can't share this just because of the sensitive nature of how this was released. Rebs Gaming, apparently, or someone in the Halo community, I believe, found a secret link to the website somewhere in the website's files. And someone had actually made a whole documentary with people like Frank O'Connor and Chris Lee before they were let go, and many other people that honestly we have not seen or heard from in years. And now we are getting unseen footage of them talking about Halo Infinite and how they planned for a 2019 release. They talk about how the open world was going to be so ambitious and exciting, and clearly something went terribly wrong because they spend this 21 minutes talking about some cool things, but mostly it just feels like they don't, in a way, know exactly what they're talking about, or at least can't execute on this fun vision that they have, despite their massive team. Obviously, we've beat this down, this dead horse for a long time. Halo Infinite was not the game that we had hoped, nor what 343 had hoped it to be for many reasons. And, you know, they talk about Unreal Engine. They foresaw this, and this is something that we've talked about here on the channel because my source told me this as well, is that the game, the game studio looked into this being basically an Unreal Engine game for Halo Infinite. They talk about how it would take 2 years to rebuild the foundation of Halo. Obviously, this is probably true, if not longer. As we've seen since the end of Halo Infinite, there are API clues that we've seen that they have basically switched to to Unreal Engine. There are little things in the code that seems to be indicating that Halo Infinite was dropped at the beginning of 2022 and that they have shifted gears for the most part into reestablishing Halo. And that was in the beginning of 2022. So now it's about 3 years later. Maybe we're going to be getting a Halo game soon, whether that be a Halo Combat Evolved game or something of that nature. Now, we know last year they talked about this in their own vidoc, that they released officially at Halo World Championship, and now we're getting another. At least it seems that way based on what they said. They're continuing the conversation about Unreal, right? They also say in this old vidoc that was leaked, Unreal Engine is more of a known commodity, which makes it obviously more accessible for people to come in and know what they're doing instead of having to get trained. Can Unreal impact the vision of Halo? And culture is a problem regardless of engine. This is what they said, not me. This is something that they've known has been a problem for, I guess, almost a decade, if not longer. Culture is a massive issue at 343, and they were literally having a presentation on it, which is hilarious. There's also some footage of Halo in Unreal. Nothing too juicy, honestly. It looks like me or you could just pop up, throw in some assets into Halo, and make it look just as exciting, I guess. It's not that hard. There's also some unseen footage of Halo assets in slip space. There's also some gameplay in this documentary that leaked that looks kind of like a hybrid between Halo 5's gameplay that was being developed and transitioning into Halo Infinite. Now, it makes me wonder why they never released this, and I'm guessing it's because they talked about so many aimless things that ended up not happening, and honestly is just kind of leaving me a feeling of, I don't know, reminding me of the big disappointment that Halo Infinite had and the potential that it also had. They show these screenshots, conceptualized main menu and multiplayer shots And banners they talk about of quarterly releases. One of them is campaign DLC. It looks like this is what they wanted the first piece of campaign DLC to be. It was going to be called Atriox's Regime. And it says you are, or Atriox's reign actually, it says you are the only thing standing in the way of a master plan to dominate the galaxy. Stop him from using the rings and save humanity once more. Crush Atriox's warlords one by one to reach his seat of power. The Bastion. Warlords rise. The new Warlords system comes to the open world. This is labeled as campaign DLC, mind you. And the fact that they're mentioning the Bastion, that's pretty insane. That is pretty much what we heard, at least in lore from what I remember, is like a very protected place by the foreigners. And if somehow Atriox is there right now, if this is what Halo 7's going to be about, that's pretty insane. We can dig more into that later, but the menu for searching matches looks way better. The UI just looks better, at least conceptually. They also talk about sockets, and this is what I was going to get into about how they were discussing hero shooter aspects being put into the game. We're talking about components, modular things, a class-like system. You can even see the words assassin pop up, or heavy, for example. There's some new footage of a Spartan sneaking up on a banished. I can't tell if this is slip space or Unreal. Doesn't really matter. It looks like just a untextured kind of conceptualized trailer or gameplay showing, I guess, developers what the intention is here, or maybe to, I don't know, some higher ups, but basically it shows a Spartan sabotaging a turret and getting away with it. And then there's another approach of having a rocket pod artillery-like system on a Spartan's back, and they fire it by grabbing a little knob and twisting it. And if y'all didn't believe me about the leak I was told by my source years ago, well, you should now, because this was something that 343 considered. Just like they considered using Unreal Engine, and they said if Halo Infinite was going to flop, my same source told me that if Halo Infinite flopped bad, which there was a lot of anticipation that it would by contractors that were developing it, but also employees. Everyone kind of knew, including us, people looking, from outside looking in, from what we could tell, it looked like it was going to be a miss at launch. I mean, they even had to delay the game by a year publicly, but they intended to release it in 2019. So, and that's something that I remember hearing about. Obviously, we got that first teaser in 2018 and something went terribly wrong. But what I heard from my source was that if Halo Infinite did flop, then the entire team would be scrapped. And that's kind of what happened. We had Bonnie Ross step down, we had Frank O'Connor disappear, we had many other prominent figures step down or just kind of disappear or move on to other adventures. But they're no longer working on Halo. It's really all that matters. And what we are concerned now is about the culture. And that's why I think what I also heard was that Microsoft would be moving over to Certain Affinity and having another studio basically take control, and maybe the good talent would move over there. I don't quite know what is happening now and how that lines up as things, I guess, do change. But there's also a lot of unknowns right now. Is 343 actually full on developing the game themselves, or are they simply at the helms of directing things, just like they kind of did with Halo Wars 2? But yeah, it makes me wonder what else they were trying to do, because what else I heard was that 343 was going to be doing all kinds of things. They were going to have a big open world, lots of animals, lots of things to do, side quests, ancient human temples, humans that lived on Zeta Halo a long time ago. That's a whole other thing, but obviously sentinels that were underwater, things like that. The vision was there, and you can hear that in this documentary, but yeah, obviously none of that really made it in. They also discussed their build-up in the Battle of the Ring. Frank O'Connor said fans shouldn't have to wait for 3 years for each release anymore, which has not aged well at all, and I think this is part of the reason why they didn't release it, because almost everything in this documentary is just wishful thinking. It's just developers hoping that they can do any of this. It's not even hoping. It's just like they were very confident that they were going to be able to do any of this, and almost none of it delivered. So I don't see it as like something super exciting. I do think that the campaign DLC does sound like something that Halo 7 is going to end up being about. But I can understand why 343 has just locked in and focused on doing their own thing for now, because when they talk about stuff, I think they're setting expectations way too high. Clearly, they need some help, right? Because whatever they're doing right now has not been working, and something desperately needs to change. So I don't think that if they get Unreal Engine worked into Halo, this is over a 10-year long issue, and this is a part of the culture, in my opinion. And the fact that Unreal Engine is replacing Slipspace Engine, be gone with it. I know Slipspace was great in its own ways, but clearly that was the Achilles heel for Halo for about 12 years, in my opinion. This has been a massive issue, even as far back as Halo 4, even, honestly. So they clearly are not an engineering company. They clearly don't know that hiring contractors to develop source code and then fire them 6 months later is a bad idea. So anyways, if you want to watch the documentary in full, there is a link down in the description. You can check it out. I think I talked about most of the juicy stuff. If I missed anything, let me know down in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one soon. Peace.